woman said, but her voice was gentle. "You may come in now, but remain silent. Close that door and mind it that no one interrupts us." Jessica stepped into the room, closed the door, and stood with her back to it. "My son lives," she thought. "My son lives and is human. I knew he was, but he lives. Now I can go on living." The door felt hard and real against her back. Everything in the room was immediate and pressing against her senses. My son lives. Paul looked at his mother. She told the truth. He wanted to get away alone and think this experience through, but knew he couldn't leave until he was dismissed. The old woman had gained a power over him. They spoke truth. His mother had undergone this first. There must be terrible purpose in it. The pain and fear had been terrible. He understood terrible purposes. They drove against all odds. They were their own necessity. Paul felt that he had been infected with terrible purpose. He didn't know yet what the terrible purpose was. "Someday, lad," the old woman said, "you too may have to stand outside a door like that. It takes a measure of doing." Paul looked down at the hand that had known pain, then up to the Reverend Mother. The sound of her voice had contained a difference then from any other voice in his experience. The words were outlined in brilliance. There was an edge to them. He felt that any question he might ask her would bring an answer that could lift him out of his flesh world into something greater. "Why do you test for humans?" he asked. "To set you free." "Free?" "Once men turned their thinking over to machines, in the hope that this would set them free, but that only permitted other men with machines to enslave them." "Thou shalt not make a machine in the likeness of a man's mind," Paul quoted. "Right out of the Butlerian Jihad and the Orange Catholic Bible," she said. "But what the OC Bible should have said is, thou shalt not make a machine to counterfeit a human mind." Have you studied the Mentat in your service? "I've studied with Thufir Hawat." "The Great Revolt took away a crutch," she said. "It forced human minds to develop. Schools were started to train human talents." "Bene Gesserit schools?" She nodded. "We have two chief survivors of those ancient schools, the Bene Gesserit and the Spacing Guild. The Guild, so we think, emphasizes almost pure mathematics.
I believe we are not acquainted.
Bene Gesserit performs another function."
Have you business with us?
"Politics,"
If not,
he said.
I'd prefer to keep
Kul
a distance,
Wahat?
if possible.
The old woman said. She sent a hard glance at Jessica. "I've not told him, Your Reverend," Jessica said. The Reverend Mother returned her attention to Paul. "You did that on remarkably few clues." "Politics indeed. The original Bene Gesserit school was directed by those who saw the need of a thread of continuity in human affairs. They saw there could be no such continuity without separating human stock from animal stock for breeding purposes." The old woman's words abruptly lost their special sharpness for Paul. He felt an offense against what his mother called his instinct for rightness. It wasn't that Reverend Mother lied to him. She obviously believed what she said. It was something deeper, something tied to his terrible purpose. He said, "But my mother tells me many Bene Gesserit of the schools don't know their ancestry." "The genetic lines are always in our records," she said. "Your mother knows that either she's of Bene Gesserit descent or her stock was acceptable in itself." Then why couldn't she know who her parents are?
Some do, many don't. We might, for example, have wanted to breed her to a close relative to set up a dominant in some genetic trait. We have many reasons.
Again, Paul felt the offense against rightness. He said, "You take a lot on yourselves." The Reverend Mother stared at him, wondering,
did I hear criticism in his voice? We carry a heavy burden, she said.
Paul felt himself coming more and more out of the shock of the test. He leveled a measuring stare at her, said, "You say maybe I'm the Kwisatz Haderach. What's that, a human Gom Jabbar?"
Paul,
Jessica said, "You mustn't take that tone with..."
"I'll handle this, Jessica,"
the old woman said.
"Now, lad, do you know about the truth-sayer drug?"
"You take it to improve your ability to detect falsehood," he said. "My mother's told me."
"Have you ever seen truth trance?"
He shook his head. "No."
"The drug's dangerous," she said, "but it gives insight. When a truth-sayer's gifted by the drug, she can look many places in her memory, in her body's memory. We look down so many avenues of the past, but only feminine avenues."
Her voice took on a note of sadness.
"Yet, there's a place where no truth-sayer can see. We are repelled by it, terrorized. It is said a man will come one day and find in the gift of the drug his inward eye. He will look where we cannot, into both feminine and masculine pasts."
"Your Kwisatz Haderach?"
"Yes. The one who can be many places at once. The Kwisatz Haderach. Many men have tried the drug. So many. But none has succeeded."
"They tried and failed, all of them?"
"Oh, no."
She shook her head.
"They tried and died.